3, 4, get my shoes and out the door. 5, I'm alive. 6, 7, 8, feeling great. 9, gonna shine.
Hello and welcome to the FM Health Club podcast for another week. My name is Justin Waring, and today we are continuing on with our conversation with Andrew Williams after last week's spectacular conversation about celiac disease and the issues and treatments and everything surrounding celiac disease that people who both have the disease, think they have the disease, or know someone with it will want to listen to. So today we're continuing our conversation with Andrew in regards to his health and fitness and a weight loss journey that he's been on, with a surprising little twist at the end about how he's continuing to maintain what is a really good weight for him. So sit back and enjoy, and we will catch you next week. See you later. Bye. As I said, Andrew, you've probably been at EFM for, I reckon, 12 years or so. Experienced a couple of different EFMs. And so when I guess your goals for when you first started to where they are now, are they similar, different?
Well, going back 12 years is a long time. I think weight loss has always been uppermost. As I've gotten older, and not only that, but also the exercise to train for sports that I like doing. I used to play soccer, I play baseball, I do indoor rock climbing. None of these I do very well. In fact, most of them I do pretty poorly. But the reason was to get better at those by dropping the weight, increasing my muscle mass, and that's become sort of more of a focus over the last few years as I'm getting older too, because as you know, you lose certain amounts of muscle mass per year as you age. So in terms of the goal, it's mostly weight loss, I think.
Okay, and so in terms of weight loss, where have you? What do you remember? What your highest point was?
Yeah, I would have been about 92, maybe.
Yeah, and you're about
94,
175, 178 centimeters.
175. I used to think I was 177, but recently I found that's not true. Either I've shrunk or I was fooling myself. And so that's a reasonably high BMI, I guess.
Yeah.
Not obese, but not where I'd like to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and moving forward, we'll come back to this. Now, what weight are you at now?
So I'm about 75, 76, something like that.
Yeah.
About 75, yeah. And I think, look, I guess I'd like to have more muscle, less fat. So I'm sort of happy with that 75. But if I was to drop more fat, I'd probably drop more muscle as well, if you know what I mean. I'm sort of on that track, I think. So I'm sort of happy to stay where I am. If I can stay at around 75 and build muscle, then or at least stop losing muscle as quickly.
Yeah,
I think that's the aim.
Yeah.
And I think, having said that, EFM, and I go to a number of different gyms, but EFM stands out head and shoulders, and simply because you've got a trainer there, at least when I'm there, almost all the time. And if I've got any questions at all, those questions are answered really well, because I might have follow-up questions. I might say, I want to target this particular tricep muscle. What should I be doing?
Yeah.
And you'll show me something where, I have to change my position when I'm doing the tricep push downs or whatever. And that's a real, and I haven't found out with any other gym. Obviously, they've got trainers, and you would have to make an appointment with them and have a regular session, whatever. But that's your. And look, I'm not. You're not paying me to say this, or maybe you should be. No, but I'm just saying. I think that's helped me a lot.
Yeah.
Over the years.
Actually, that conversation we had last week. So, in terms of your rock climbing, that conversation about having and how we kind of work through different exercises, which we almost made up on the spot. About being stretched to your, having a foot on one hold and the other foot for a little bit higher and stretched as far as you can go, and then having to drive power through that leg that was further advanced, and how we train for that. That was it was a good, I think we came at it it was a bit scientific. That's why I like working through things with you, Andrew, but together we came up with a really good couple of new exercises that I've never prescribed and probably will never prescribe to anybody else for something specific. Yeah, it's a good challenge for me too.
Yeah, so in terms of those exercises, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I've been doing them regularly now, trying to basically, I guess, really get more flexible. And certainly seems to be helping in terms of the grades of climbs that I'm able to do. Seems to have improved.
Yeah, flexibility with power too. So it's
that's a better way of putting it.
Yeah. And so at 92, when you were playing soccer and baseball, did you feel fit at that point, or a bit sluggish?
That's a good point. Getting back to, look, I suppose a bit sluggish. But I think that's not a bad way of putting it, actually. And then look, I got serious about it.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized at the time that the only thing that was stopping me, and this is probably the same for most people, the only thing stopping you is motivation, right? Once you find something that motivates you, I think that's what you need. And without motivation, it's say, well, for me, it would be impossible. But the motivation back then was simply wanted to get thinner and better. And my thinking was, I'll be able to run better, I'll be able to climb better if I have less weight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was the motivation to start that weight loss.
Yeah. And so what did you try? Let's run through the different diets.
So it's interesting. Look, I could talk about this for a long time.
We got time.
For quite a while, I've been dealing with ways of training the mind to cope with these sort of challenges, right? It's a challenge, right? To lose that much weight is a challenge. And so I decided I developed a mantra for myself. And this may help some other people. They may take bits of these things and use them. They might decide to have nothing to do with it. But what I decided was there was a mantra of 3 different things. One was to breathe. Second one was to drink. And the third one was to focus. So the breathing, deep breathing, shallow breathing, different types of breathing, and that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. It calms you down. It makes you it makes me more focused, and it helped me overcome those areas where I was eating because I was bored, right? And that's a little bit the same with drinking. So drinking enough water so that you're well hydrated, that's the first thing. And the second thing is if you're drinking water, you're less likely to eat. Often I found I was getting hungry because I didn't have enough water. That makes sense. And the third one, and this is probably the most important, and that was focusing. And so I tried to train myself, and I did all sorts of meditation kind of experiments and things, train myself to focus more on in everyday life. And sometimes that would be, when I started out, it would be even a little thing, like I would choose one task and I would choose to focus on every little bit of that task. And that was getting up in the morning, making some coffee. And so when I say focus, I'm not focusing on the task of making the coffee. I'm focusing on the task of reaching for the coffee. Next, I'm focusing only on taking the lid of the coffee off. And then I'm focusing on getting the spoon. And then I'm focusing on the first spoon of coffee. And then I'm focusing on taking that to the, and so you understand what I'm saying. And so this came from, the meditation teaching. You focus on every little thing, and obviously you do, especially at the start, you find your mind wandering. And then what happened to me, and happens to most people, and they say to avoid this is your mind wanders and you go, well, I can't do this because my mind's wandered, then you give up. What you do is you just bring your mind back to the focus. So you lose focus, you're thinking about something else, the kids are yelling or something, got to take them to school. You bring it back to the task. You just keep bringing it back. And every day you get better and better at doing this. And the focusing really helps with exercise, it helps with diet, it helps when you're eating. Because for me, I would often eat when I was bored. Come home, sit on the couch, open a thing of biscuits and just sit there and,
Smash it.
And so that was kind of the start. And that helped me start that process, that weight loss process. Then I started calorie counting. And I did that through, you might have heard of an app called Noom.
Yep.
So the Noom app tracks your food, calories, and there's a whole bunch of, it's basically started by some people with scientific background in psychology, I think, and looking at all the different tricks that you can use to help you stick to your diet and stick to the calorie counting. And that I dropped the weight probably down to about 85, I guess. And I was and you could see it because each day you track your weight, and I was very, very religious about tracking that every day and counting the calories. So then I was at 85, and I found that I was kind of staying around 85.
Yeah.
And then I hurt my knee playing baseball, and it stopped me playing baseball, which is pretty annoying. But also I got a lot of a burst, if you like, of motivation from that. Oh my God, I've hurt my knee. I'm going to start putting on weight. I'm going to have a knee operation. I won't be able to move. I won't be able to do the cardio that I've been doing that's kept the weight off. I've got to get stuck into it. And that helped me drop the weight about another 3 kilos down to 82.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm at 82, well, probably down to about 80 actually. I was
and
around
just
that
more like calorie restriction,
calorie
a bit more of the same. Yeah.
And by that I mean, I wouldn't eat cakes, any lollies, any chocolate.
Cut out the rubbish.
But also I was very focused on cutting out the sucrose. So I would find a yogurt that had no fat, no sugar in it. I put some artificial sweetener in it because I got a sweet tooth, which is why I got out to 94. And yeah, so I got to a plateau at about 80, I guess.
Yeah.
And then, as Justin knows, you've heard of Ozempic.
Yes.
And so You can get Ozempic if you've got type 1 diabetes. That's what the TGA tells you, and if your BMI is over a certain level. And so I went to the GP, and the TGA had recently said, look, not only if you've got type 1 diabetes mellitus, but also if you want to drop weight and you've got a certain condition and your BMI is over, I think it was 27 or over.
Wow.
You can take Wegovy or another drug. So I won't go into the conditions that the GP decided that I had that could allow me to take the drug. But it was significant in terms of affecting my lifestyle and possibly my long-term longevity.
Wow.
So then I started taking the weekly injection. And you start out very small and you build up to a bigger dose. And it takes 6 months or something before you get up there. And that I found very helpful in dropping the weight down to 75. And I don't know what my BMI is now, but I think it's manageably at a level that I'm fairly happy with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As I've talked to Jason about, I think that weight loss I think there's a fair amount of muscle that I've lost, as well as the fat, maybe even more muscle. I've had no side effects. And I had to go off it recently because I had to have a procedure. And it was an operation where they were looking at, this was last week, looking at the inside of my gut, basically. And they said, look, you've got to go off the drug for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And
what I noticed was going off it for a couple of weeks, I did notice an increase in my desire to eat more, which I found interesting. And I have to have another operation in a month's time. And again, I'm going to have to go off it. So I'll see what and I think for a bit longer too this time, because I'll be under a general anesthetic. And they're worried about aspiration because gastric emptying is supposed to slow. And so they're worried about aspirating food up into getting a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that has made me. So I'm very happy about where I am now.
Yeah.
And as Justin will tell you, my focus now is to really stop that muscle loss, because I think it's something people need to be aware of. Don't think, and this is just in my case, I didn't just lose fat.
Mm-hmm.
I lost muscle as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not something I wanted to do.
And can I ask, did you lose strength with the muscle loss?
That's a good question. It's a little bit harder to. I think overall.
I don't think so. Watching you at the gym, you're as strong as you ever were.
I'm not any stronger though. I don't
Not
think.
any stronger. Yeah.
Look, objectively with that extra 5 kilos of weight that I've lost, I think I'm climbing better. A little bit better, and I think Justin's exercise that increased my flexibility took that up a level again. But yeah, that's briefly the weight loss journey. As I said, I could talk about the different things that I did in terms of habits and there's a lot of things that go through your mind. Like for instance, soups and salads.
Yeah.
Right? That would be my. Someone said, give me a really short version. Soups and salads. You know, you can have a really good healthy salad that fills you up, People think salads are just green stuff, but there's some really good fruit and veg, even in just the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
And soups. I had an awful lot of soups. There's a
Yeah.
lot of water in soup, and that fills you up, and they're very nutritious. And the other thing I did was, because I was conscious of needing those vegetables, and they say you should have 5 serves of vegetables a day, I would get a packet of frozen vegetables and stick it in a blender, one of those Bullet things,
Yeah.
or something similar. Put some water in it, stick it in the microwave for 3 minutes, blend it, drink it, or eat it.
Consume it.
Consume it.
I've got to say, that's very nutritious. It doesn't look very good though, Andrew. Like, it's not appetizing.
Function,
no,
Justin.
that's where the mind training comes into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Well, and you've trained yourself to say, look, this is what I need. I'm just going to have it. Not all food needs to make me happy all the time. And as we've talked about in the past, Goggins helped me too.
Yeah.
Because I figure this guy can run 100 miles in Death Valley with no water. I can drink some veggies. I can eat some veggies.
It strikes me along that whole process that it was more that, like, weight loss is a lot more of a mental game than it is physical. You knew what you want, you knew what you had to eat, but it's overcoming, I guess, the initial habits first of having a sweet tooth, the initial habits, then overcoming cravings, overcoming an injury and going, all right, I actually need to apply myself a little harder here. Then Ozempic almost takes the mental side and the mental struggle out of it and says, all right, this is now purely physical. I'm going to take that craving, that desire to eat away.
Yeah.
And it's almost a game-changing thing in terms of it has a physical effect, but it probably has a bigger mental effect.
So what it does is, this is what I believe, when I said before, the only thing you really need is motivation, it takes that away.
Yeah.
That's at least for me, it's sort of gone. I mean, obviously you can't blow out, but I just don't eat anywhere nearly as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the moment, I've had no side effects. And people have said to me, why are you doing that to your body? And look, I'm 62 years old. What am I going to be doing? I've only got 20 or so years left. I'm going to experiment as much as I like. The other thing that's helped, and we've talked about this before, Justin, is the Stoic philosophy. Stoicism is really good way of getting you to stick to a task. That's very basic, obviously, but there's all different parts of Stoicism. And so I view now, or even in the past, I've always viewed things as a challenge. And so it's something to overcome, and you can overcome it. And it's the viewing of a challenge means that you have to find a way it's almost finding a way of solving a problem. That might make sense. So instead of viewing yourself as a victim, you view yourself as someone who has to overcome something to get to somewhere else. That kind of makes
a bit more of the hero of your own story.
Well, exactly. It's sort of like a hero's journey kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, on a very small level.
Small, yes. It's your own story. You might as well be the hero of it.
Yeah. Well, everyone's the hero of their own story.
Who wants to be the villain of their own story? Yeah.
So,
and so now that you're kind of going off, so you said you kind of felt some food cravings coming back. worried that if you go off Ozempic, then it may have like a bounce back effect, like a trampoline going, all right, now these food cravings come back harder and there's like no stopping them.
Yeah, maybe that's,
Yeah.
I've got no intention of stopping it.
Yeah.
There are some risk factors. Look, I looked into a lot of detail into the pathway at which it works in the body. Because I'm trying to do that. And I know a lot about its mechanism already. I knew a lot about its mechanism, and so it does seem to, just the way it acts, it does seem to be something that could be a real game changer.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot of interest. It's been interesting talking to you about and today, and also in the gym, about the experience with it. I think it's important to highlight for people who are listening, going, oh, wow, Ozempic, it kind of works. That's brilliant. And here's a person who's had no real side effects, right? Sign me up. You also achieved a fair amount of weight loss before that. Like, you'd implemented strategies, you'd taken a real scientific approach to going, okay, well, both scientific and a bit spiritually too, about training the mind, setting apart like certain foods, setting aside certain foods, and figuring out how to do things. So there was, a good proportion of your weight loss before Ozempic that had occurred, and probably stood you in good stead for this smaller portion now of the weight loss. And the final, and maybe the hardest push, that final little bit to, I guess, the summit of where the weight that you want to get to.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. And it was that last 5 kilos that I was finding it very difficult to lose.
Yeah.
So
it's always the last 5.
Yeah. How often do you hear that?
Yeah. Fascinating, the journey that you've been on, Andrew. It's everyone's is unique and different, but I think yours especially so. But I think there's a fair bit to learn from what you've just talked about finding what works for you, and perhaps some of the different methods, whether that's of the mind or in our practices, that people might be able to take away and go, hey, is that for me? It challenges our thinking, us as coaching and us as coaches, and for our listeners as well. So I think that's been really instructive and helpful, to be honest. So
that's good if that's the case. I'm happy to, if you wanted to reach out with anything that I said that didn't make sense or
no.
No, thanks, Andrew. That's been amazing. I reckon we've got 2 podcasts there. Really appreciate your time. It's been fantastic, and look forward to more conversations in the gym.
Baseball and golf, isn't it?
Baseball and golf. Yeah, especially on a Friday morning, there's always golf on the TV.
Well, thanks, guys. Lovely to meet you, Jason, and thanks, Justin.
Thanks very much for your time, Andrew. Have a great day. Good luck.
See you.
All right.
For more information on any of our previous podcasts, you can go to our Instagram page, the EFM Health Club podcast page. You can find myself at EFM Westmead, Jason at EFM Mawson Lakes, and Wade at EFM McGill. Please rate, review, and subscribe on any of the podcast platform players that you listen to. And also, if you're looking for some free content in regards to your health and fitness exercise programs, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is EFM Fitness Online. Just search EFM Fitness Online and you will find a number of workout programs that you can follow along to, strength programs, cardio programs, mixed programs, anything you'd like. It's all up there absolutely free. So if you aren't near an EFM and would like to do an EFM style workout, you can watch and follow along on the EFM Fitness Online YouTube page.